Feel like saying welcome back, guys, too. So we're going to do our second webinar today, and we're going to be talking about essentially mastering your thoughts. But before we get stuck in, a bit of a sentiment from both you and I that with everything you do with your mindset, I think that sometimes we can really evolve our mindset and we can think, right, we've done preps, we've done, the bodybuilding, maybe you've progressed in your career, many, many things. And we can almost take it for granted a little bit because it's like, right, I've got all these things and, everything's going really well. And then we have these challenges and we have these reflections, and it's like, oh, actually, maybe there's some more work I need to do. Maybe there's some things that have triggered me, like multiple things that can happen when it comes to mindset. And this is where, and I'm sure you'll say the same sentiment, it's a journey like the physique journey, but it's almost harder in respect of holding yourself accountable to how do we know if our mindset is growing? How do we know if we're evolving? Particularly in the bodybuilding space, it's like accolades. Maybe, you're placing higher, or you make your way up the ranks, or preps are a little bit easier because you know what you're used to and you can lend yourself to that. But when it's your mind, how do you know what are the quantifiable things that you know that it's evolving and growing? And I think that's sometimes why it can feel almost quite hard, because for bodybuilders we quantify everything, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, everything's weighed to the gram, everything's tracked, everything's logged. And it's very hard to log mental progressions,
Mm.
these invisible wins,
Yeah.
the progressions that we have within ourselves that isn't based on the physique. I mean, it's very hard to have, we can have transformation photos or a physical transformation photo, but we can't have a mental one. We can't see how far we've come as an individual in those regards. It just takes a lot of introspective evaluation to actually get to that point. I suppose one of the ways you can do this is journaling throughout that and writing down essentially, how you're feeling, how something has made you feel, and how you've responded to that, and being able to reflect back on that and being able to see, okay, I react differently to that now, and using examples from the past and how you now feel about those things, whether it's your relationship with food, the relationship with your body, your, mindset in the off season or in a prep or post show, whatever that may be, and reflecting on those instances. And that's a good way to sort of quantify how far you have come as an individual in that regard.
Mm. And then it's, I think as well, as I touched on, almost like taking that for granted to a certain degree. Not that we shouldn't be flexing that we've evolved as competitors, and maybe, as you mentioned there, like the post show, you've tackled it better, or the prep's been better. Your relationships have been a better quality because you know how to communicate more, all of these things. But then it's like, so then what do you do next? Like if you've climbed the ranks, you've done this thing, and it's exploring, okay, so is there certain things within my own brain, the loudest noise you're ever going to hear, of that I could work on? And you mentioned their relationship with food, or relationship with yourself. Those types of things, they go, uh, they it's so intrinsic, and you guys know my journey, I'm very honest about it, and it helps you resonate with certain things. And part of that for me is if I talk about how bad it got with the food relationship, with the scale weight, with the body image, could that help you not to be so, consumed by listening to me going, guys, I'm fucked by this. I don't want that for you.
Yeah.
Can that help you a little bit? Can that help you a little bit? But this all starts with honesty within ourselves, and it's not easy. It's really not easy, and it would be no one hears this, so no one hears. Every 5 minutes, I'm going, "What's my next meal? Have I got my green beans? Have I done this? Have I done that?" Nobody hears that, so it's that invisible, like you say,
Yeah.
that contributes. But it's very hard unless we have a reason to sort of have that epiphany, isn't it?
It is very hard. And again, it's being able to sort of reflect into like, okay, I'm weighing my food just like I did last time. My approach is similar, but I'm not overthinking how many times have I weighed it correctly
Yeah.
afterwards, or I'm not thinking about when my next meal is due obsessively. And I'm not, it's that from the outside, it looks like you're doing exactly the same thing,
Mm.
but it's not. It's again being honest with yourself and being able to reflect introspectively and going, hey, maybe my relationship with food isn't the healthiest at the moment. Maybe my relationship with my body isn't the healthiest at the moment. And it's having a good relationship with yourself is a perishable skill, and it takes consistent work. And part of this is what I also do as a coach myself. I sort of refer to myself as the ghost of the Christmas future. It's like the mistakes that you could make. Don't be like me. I've made these mistakes. These are the pitfalls that you've had. This is the sort of the coach's curse, where you've made these mistakes. And part of the benefit of having a coach is you get to fast track all these errors if you are open-minded enough, if you communicate. And again, that first takes the step of admitting it to yourself and going, maybe I need to reach out and communicate. And then being able to communicate, even through just talking and it coming out of yourself, maybe you might have some epiphanies from that without even any input from anyone else. Maybe it's just actually saying it and filtering it through your words. And like I say, you'd be writing it down, journaling it. That could give you another epiphany of, holy shit, okay, this is how I feel. This is what it is. And then from there, obviously, your coach can then help you tackle that. If they're a good coach, they should be able to go and pick from their own anecdotal experience. This is what I've had. I can resonate with that. This is how I overcame it. This is the potential pitfall that you are susceptible to go into. And this is what you want to do to avoid that. And you will be able to spot trends that you yourself may not be able to see that you are doing, from just observing and just having have gone through it before. And again, that fast tracks a bunch of trial and error. And then, when I'm coaching people to avoid the mistakes I've made, so they can be a better version of myself, and they can get to that end point that's taken me years of fuck ups to get to, essentially.
Mm.
Definitely, I totally agree with all of that. I just think it's hard as well, though, if you're not a journaling type of person, like I'm not consistent in in certain ways. Like I openly talk about my ADHD and the lack of consistency in certain areas. So like journaling is hard for me because I'm not consistent with it. But through this journey, my fourth year in the journey, I am finding that I'm getting more consistent with things, recognizing that I am like sick as like the prep I did last time, getting on the bike every day, every day, every day. Now I'm in a routine of getting up, and do you know what I mean? It's kind of like the each little step that you take is a bit more consistency, isn't it? So I suppose the journaling's that way. It's maybe just even on your phone in your notes or something. If you've, do you know, that's the problem that I have is the
I,
consistency.
I think
I carry a journal with me, so I won't write every single day because the same with you. I've got this intention. A journal will save the life of an ADHD person, but it doesn't. You'll get 4 or 5 days and you'll write it down, and then it might go a week. But if you carry that journal around with you, and on those days you're like, oh, I don't know what to do, just get in a flow state, and you might surprise yourself. Because like I found a
Yeah.
diary from prep last year of like 10 or 12 entries, and I was like, oh my god, this is so deep, and there was so much in there. And I've sat back and I've read it again, and I'm like, okay, I'm back in that place of knowing what the way the self-sabotage was and what bits have gone on, and I've rediscovered my trigger points. So just carrying a book with you with the intention of writing it down can sometimes help.
Yeah,
Or maybe instead of writing, you can record things on your phone if you find it easier that way.
yeah, that's a good idea too. I also find my check-in with my coach is written on an app. So I look back. So for example, my last check-in, well, my first check-in of this year, 2005, the last question on the check-in is, is there anything that can hinder your progress this week? So this first check-in of this year, I wrote every first of the year that I've looked back on my check-in with yourself, I make an excuse that my son's birthday is on the 2nd of January. I have cake. I said, so this year I went to Tesco's. I bought a small signature cake that feeds four, filled it up with Oreos and stuff. There wasn't enough for me because I've got 4 kids that were here. So I split it up between the 4. I didn't have it. So that was progress this year for me, and a massive thing, and recognizing that I make that excuse every year. Do you know? So that's
I love that.
That's fantastic, and that's what we were touching on with, just being able to look back, and that is your ability to sort of standardize the wins that you are making, those visible wins, those mental wins. And I think it's important to note that journaling can come from different formats. It doesn't necessarily have to be you opening up a book and writing it down. And it doesn't have to be a designated time. I have to journal every evening. It shouldn't feel like a chore.
It can though, can't it?
It can feel like a chore, and it is this balance between, okay, sometimes you journal and you don't feel like doing it, much like you will go to a training session, you don't feel like doing it, and it ends up being an incredible session and quite a cathartic session, quite therapeutic. Same with journaling. Now, again, I think it's finding a way and finding a medium that suits you as an individual. And this could come from, as a few of you have touched on, it could come from a little book that you carry around, or just recording voice memos. It could come from check-ins with your coach. That is a form of reflecting. It's just whatever prompts that reflection introspectively within yourself in a way that suits you as an individual. And a lot of people get this misconception that journaling has to be just opening up a book in the evening or in the morning and writing down these very specific questions. But it's whatever is going to prompt you to look at introspectively and sort of give yourself an element of self-awareness. And again, that can come in various formats, and it is worth just going through a process of trial and error and finding what suits you the best. Because I'm an individual with ADHD as well, and I have tried. Right, I'm going to write this down, and it's something like I'm going to write down a to-do list of what to do for the next day, and I forgot to even look at the to-do list.
I
wrote it. It's like, right, I'm going to write a shopping list, and
forget the shopping list.
Forget the shopping list.
I remember one day I really, really annoyed myself where I was like, blueberries, chicken, etc., etc. I literally wrote etc., etc., and I opened up the shopping list. And I was like, why have you done that? Like,
Did you find it?
etc. It's like
What aisle was that down?
Tell me you're not a bodybuilder.
No. Got this future Jack. No, I was like, damn you, past Jack. But it's just finding what works for yourself. And sometimes it could be a random part of the day. I've just had this thought. I like this. I want to explore this thought a little bit deeper. I was going to start talking to my phone through voice or talking through the notepad, and you just expanding on this. And again, it's through, because obviously, especially if you've got ADHD, there's multiple voices going on at once, and saying something or writing something down, you are forced to filter that into one voice. It's through doing that. Again, this could be prompted at a random time of the day. You don't have to place as many rules around journaling where it feels like a chore, because then it's not therapeutic at that time. Yes, there's got to be an element of discipline with that to still turn up on the days, much like I say with the gym. But again, you don't want to put it in such a way where it's that much of a chore that you completely deterred off the idea of journaling in the first place.
Yeah.
Because you can almost, it almost feels like, I don't know if any of you agree with me, like a purge sometimes. And you're like, particularly like you say, Carly, in prep, like I've read prep diaries and I think, bloody hell, like, it's just, it's wild. I'm like, past me was, and it takes you back as you described. And that's a really nice way to describe it, because when you get taken back, you can also realize how far you've come, but also you can test your future self to go, how does that feel reading your past self? Does that bring any triggers? Does that bring anything that I'm like, actually, I think I could work on this a bit more. I think I could explore this a bit more. But again, all of this, it's essentially it's prompted by yourself or perhaps your coach, maybe people around you, but it's again the accountability to do things and having that, with monitoring it as such, etc, being able to somehow reflect back, it really does help. And this is why I think it's important also as a competitor. From the start, I would, keep things. I would keep like, I've got training logs from 12 years ago. I've got the photos from 12 years ago. I've got posing rounds from 12, all of these things. And all of those things are still transformations in your mind also. Because if you're learning the skill of posing, you're learning the skill of training, these are all skills, because we can for sure get better at these things, for sure. Again, if you become complacent with something like posing or training, then you can end up shelving what is possible for you, because we've become complacent, because we feel the skill is good enough. We've got an accolade, or we've stepped on stage, or we've done something that has pushed us to go, shit, I'm a bodybuilder now. Yes, this is my thing. But can we do better? And that's across all of everything that goes into bodybuilding, because I just, it would be very hard to find someone that you could go who's a competitive bodybuilder. The posing does not need to improve in any which way, shape, or form. Training is fucking bang on, which is multifaceted anyway. Nutrition, apps, there's always that exploration, isn't there? Which is, again, not that, not that it's bad that you're in the rhythm and you're doing these things, but is there a drive to do better? And how do you do that? Do you send training footage? Do you watch YouTube videos? Do you train with other people? Do you expose yourself to get better as an athlete? And that's going to be, again, internal, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's something that you've got to prompt, because unless you, again, you were to message your coaches, send these phone clips over for them to check. Yes, they can prompt you to go, oh, let's have a look at these things. And, it's up to you to go, can I be better? Even if, it's passable, do you want to just be passable within these aspects of the process? And sometimes if we're complacent within certain things such as posing, and we can start doing it to the bare minimum. And if we're not focusing on moving forwards and we become complacent and we hold still, we're susceptible to actually come backwards, and we become blinded by the complacency within itself and being comfortable, and we could slowly start slipping backwards within that skill, because all these things like training, work ethic, resilience, the posing, and your mindset, these are all perishable skills. And the best way to uphold them is to constantly prompt yourself into new territory. And that has got to come from within. And that's got to be just constantly being reflective enough to be able to go, okay, this is good. It's that balancing act. Be proud of yourself, and go, this is good. I've come this far. Be aware of that. Can I do better? Do I want to be better? Well, yeah, we're on the process of self-improvement. So most likely the answer is going to be yeah. How do we do that? Without obviously bullying ourselves and saying again that we're not good enough or anything like that. It's about
Yeah,
it's the
this is it,
balancing
isn't
act
it?
of being proud of where you've come from and acknowledging how far you've come. But again, not being complacent for you to slip back or stay there or just undo the process of just keep exploring because you don't know where your potential lies. Most people don't know where the potential lies. And the more you explore your potential, the more you realize there's more potential there. And this could come from many aspects, genetics included. A lot of people will ask myself, what are my genetics? Am I genetically good enough for this? And the answer is find out, explore it. Like the genetics, my understanding of my own genetics is way different from when I first started this process. And it's through exploring that and exploring it more. I'm like, oh, I didn't know I had these genetic traits until I did this process for a certain amount of time. And that crosses over to multiple things. It's like, I didn't know I could be this resilient until I subjected myself to this type of process. I didn't know I could be this strong in the gym. I didn't know I could, be as skilled at these movements or I could be a good poser or I could pose to this extent until I explored it.
You're
And
fun.
And you keep trying as well, don't you?
You're fun.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
this is where I think we can often, see who really loves bodybuilding and who's doing it for potentially external reasons. This is, of course, mastering your thoughts, external pressures also. But even on the days where it's like, fuck, life is tough, there's something inside you and you still find that bodybuilding, you still find elements of that, right? And I'm not saying that every box is ticked that day or those months. Shit happens and it's fucking rough at times, life. And I'm sure we've all been through circumstances where it's like, this is so hard. But there's little parts of the bodybuilding, and this is something I talk to clients about. It's like there's the fluid target, there's the step target, there's the food tracking, there's the training, there's the posing, there's all of these things. And this is where bodybuilding can lend itself so well to, even when right now, maybe not being better is the focus, it's like, can I still do these things that equate to that self-worth? And like you're talking about there, the lust for bodybuilding, to know that when these times pass also, I'm fucking going for this. This time in my life is very challenging. I'm gonna do what I can. I'm gonna do what I can. When things lighten up a bit and we've got that opportunity, it's like, okay, so what can I renew here? And also things like the posing, it's like, I really do feel like, as you say, Heather, it's that masterpiece, isn't it? It's the tiny little paint strokes, it's the little bits in the book, it's those little bits. I mean, it can literally be where you place your hand, right? Like it's tiny. And that always gives you little things as well. And this is where bodybuilding, there's so much we can do, that this is where again the mindset stuff, where does it fit? There's no time because there's so much we do, and then we have life in the mix as well, which is, we never really know what's going to happen, do we?
Yeah. For me, when I was in my prep, I literally had my it was on the fridge, and I literally did Monday to Sunday, and I had every meal. Well, it was literally like a grid. It ended up being a grid, and I had my meals, and then there was another grid right at the end, and those were the extra bits. So it was like prep, pause. Abs was like additional. Obviously, you have your training, but then I had what I was training. So that was what I was training on each day. And then I had extras like abs, then pausing, and then that's the prep day. And I literally had it just, and I writ it out every single week. Every week, writ it out. And then what I used to do, like through the week, I used to do tick it off, tick it off, tick it off. And then if something didn't happen, I was like, right, I'm gonna have to move that to that. And then, do you know what I mean? And I literally just worked off the fridge. I was constantly in the kitchen, to be fair. I was either prepping or looking at the fridge. That's all. That's all I was doing.
Prep,
But yeah, that's kind of like how I managed it, really. When I
yeah, it's trying to find things as well. Like, I've spoken about puzzles, and like Sarah and Manu have spoken about things they do. It's like, as well, the prep side of things, it's like all of these things in a day, but then, often actually it feels like you do them quite a little bit faster and quite a lot gets done. And then you're like, what things can I do? And even that, right? I do this for show days. I like do a little show day and then I write down the tanning time and I do a little map and all this creative endeavors that also pour into your mindset in regards to who are you outside of bodybuilding. Because I'm sure we all have things that we've been good at in the past, or maybe we're exploring at the moment that can often be forgotten because where's the time? And that still counts to, you're mastering your thoughts. Can you do something creative or meet with a friend or whatever you want to do, whatever your vibe is, that takes your mind to a present state for a couple of hours? Wow, I haven't thought about when my next meal is. I haven't thought about what my scale weight is. I haven't thought about, oh, I don't know about this top. I don't know how I look in this. For 2 hours, I've just had a nice time. What the fuck? Like, and when you start having those things, and I don't know if you guys can relate, I'm sure to a certain degree you will at some point with this sort of explanation, but it's like, when do we get to last be present? And it's wild actually because bodybuilding does consume and it's getting that it's like, are people going to think I'm not a real bodybuilder if I go and play golf? This type of thing.
I just feel like if you have in your mind that bodybuilding is like a lifestyle and not that something that you have to do. For instance, I used to go to the gym very early in the morning before work because sometimes I start at 7, so I would get up at like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And people will be like, how can you do that? Don't you get tired? And I'm like, in my head, as you know, you have to get up at 6 to be at work at 7, and that's normal for you. For me, it's normal to get up at 4, be at the gym at 5, be at work at 7. So if you have that mindset that whatever you do, I have to eat 5 times per day is normal because that's my lifestyle. I have to do cardio because it's normal, because it's my lifestyle. Then it takes away that, oh, I have to tick boxes, I have to do this and that, because it just comes like naturally, if that makes sense.
It's not you have to do it, you get to do it. It's a choice at the end of the day, and this is a lifestyle that is contributing to self-betterment. At least that's what it should be. And you can absolutely do bodybuilding to your own detriment. And this is something you've got to be aware of. Is this helping me? Is this making me better? Or am I getting a little bit messed up from this process? And it's a matter of perspective quite often. Is like, again, how am I doing this? What am I getting from this? And rather than seeing things as a chore, it's like, oh, I get to train today. That's great. That's awesome. I get to do these things that I'm able to do. I'm fortunate enough to be having the ability to do, like the ability to be able to weigh your food to the ground and to be in a deficit and to be in a surplus and to manipulate your body composition exactly how you want to, and to be on this endeavor. A lot of people aren't fortunate enough to be able to do that. Be able to train your body and stuff like that. And it's like say if you've got a blocked nose, you're going to be wishing you can use your nose, and you're like, as soon as you can smell it, oh, it's like when you're injured, you're like, and that you're going to miss your ability to train, and you don't know what you've got until it's gone, type of thing. You can the type of gratitude for the process when you've been taken away from it. But it's also worth recognizing that this process, again, does require balance outside of it for us to be able to have that type of perspective of, because if you're just so stuck into it, you can experience that burnout where it can feel like a chore. And it's a balance act. Where's that balance lie to be able to tick all these boxes and still find time to live a life outside of it and be present? And what I will say is, through experience, you become more skilled at just being able to tick these boxes and more efficient at it. And that doesn't mean that you have to knuckle down and make sure that the process maintains that type of difficulty to execute it. It just means that, cool, you've become efficient at this endeavor, at this process. So Now you've been gifted with the ability to find other stuff outside of bodybuilding that you can take part in, such as golf, whatever it may be.
Or just spending time with, your partner at home with your feet up,
Yeah.
and it might not be that you want to go out the house. Maybe that will come in time or whatever, but it's quite hard for people like ourselves.
It is because it's like we want to keep ourselves accountable to, because there's hardship in this. There's an extremity in this. This requires us to keep accountable to working hard, and so quite often during this process, I have clients that I have to pull back and go, hey, downtime, that exists. Have it, it's productive.
Sure.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, really? You have a few days off from the gym, you start to have a burnout.
Dead.
But it's also.
But don't you think by doing this every single day, same steps, no, I mean like physical steps, but like eating, drinking, sleeping, recovery, all that stuff, after a point, it just becomes normal. So you don't have to think those things because this is your lifestyle again.
Yeah.
I think with that, though, it can depend on the reasons why you're doing it. Because if you're doing it for the love of bodybuilding and you're actually doing it for yourself, then it's not. It is a lifestyle. If you're doing it for social media and for gratification for other people, which quite a few people step into bodybuilding on the basis of what they see on social media, you'll very quickly soon discover that that lifestyle isn't necessarily for you. You might be a lifestyle client, but bodybuilding does separate the people from who can do it and who can actually do it. So if you're doing it for yourself, it becomes a lifestyle, but if you're doing it for other people, it suddenly becomes a chore.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta do this, because you don't actually really deep down want to do it for yourself.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I
Also,
posted
I
on my
find people that are not
story.
in the
Sorry.
people that are not kind of in the bodybuilding world. Like I was just in Savannah there for the last couple of months with a group of people, and they were just like very interested in what I do. But they were just like, oh my God, you weigh your food at every meal. And I'm like, yes. And I was working on a boat. So I had to buy my own scales and take it. Then obviously the chef makes the food. So I have to then kind of pick what I can eat, because obviously there's loads of additional stuff within that. And okay, I'm still in off season. However, I'm still very strict with what I eat. So it was quite difficult. And then explaining to people why I'm doing this, and they're like, oh my God, that's dedication. And I'm like, but yes, I'm choosing to do this because this is what I love doing. It doesn't matter if I'm on prep. It actually gets harder on prep or more intense. But it's like in your off season, okay, you can have like an off meal plan or whatever, like once a week. But however, for the majority of the time, you've got to kind of still do what you want to do, and that is weigh your food, eat so many meals a day, drink so many liters of water, because they're all like, how much water do you drink? And I'm like, well, at the moment I'm drinking 4 liters. And it just surprises them. And they just, it does kind of come across like you're quite regimented, but I quite like that. I like a routine, and but I find it very, very helpful in other parts of my life. Just, I don't know, even in the house, I find it, I've got this to do today, X, Y, and Z, get that done. And then when it's, when I come to prep, it's so much easier just to slip right back in, because you've still been very routined. And that's what I quite like about it. But having to explain it to other people, they kind of go, wow, that's something. And it's like, I'm doing it for me. I'm not doing it for anybody else. This is what I enjoy.
Yeah, I totally get that, because obviously I'm in off season right now, and say if there was plans to go out just to do a bit of shopping or something like that, the first question what I ask is, so what are we doing for food then? What we doing for food? What time is it? Right, okay, so if we leave at this time, I should be able to get something to eat while I'm there. Actually, no, I'll eat something before I go instead. Or I'll take something with me and I'll eat it in the car. Do you know what I mean? It's just like it's just in your, and that's still how I work now. It's just always evolves around food, I think, for me. And then the question is, your life it's always to do with food. That's all you ever think about is food. You eat loads. I'm like, well, I don't. I just space it out.
It's actually a it's a saying in our house that it isn't, we're not actually hungry, it's just time to eat. Do you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
basically we're not hungry. We
Definitely.
just look at the time, somebody's alarm's going off and it's like Stephen's alarm's going off, or can you put my food on? Do you know what I mean? It's like our times of when you get up, it's like mental how it can change your timings on a weekend than it can through the week if you just have a little lie in and then you're staying up late to get your food in, and it just has a total knock-on effect on your whole day, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like
Absolutely.
as well, over time, we can allow more lenience with that to a certain degree in regards to, you might allow, rather than eating if you eat meal one at 10 o'clock or whatever, maybe one day you eat it at 10:30. That's okay. Maybe
Yeah.
one day you eat it at 11. Maybe you eat it at 9:45. I think, again, this can help longevity for your mind when we think about relationship with food in particular. And certainly from personal experience, it had to be. I mean, the world would have to be on fucking fire if I wasn't having my meal at the same time every day. That would be the only excuse that warrant me not being where I am for my meals every single day. And I realized just over time that gave me a little bit more mental bandwidth. And I'm still ticking the boxes. I'm still doing what I need to do. And that also equates to, again, what all of you are saying is this is our choice and it's fucking epic. Like, what everyone else thinks, that's their opinion. And opinions are not facts, and we can either take them in or let them go. But also it's like, own that shit, right? Like, I'm doing this thing, and there's many people in the world that either, like you say, are not privileged enough to do that. They won't do it because they don't want to. They pretend that they don't know enough about it because they're like, "Oh, I can't do that." And there's so many variants of that. But when we talk about our own mind, it's like, you walk around owning what you're doing. This translates into the body image as well. Like, walk around the gym, height of off season, I'm fucking here for it. It hits very different to if we're constantly sort of, oh God, I don't feel comfortable. And that's a whole nother topic, I guess. I mean, while you're here today, perhaps we could talk about how you are with body image as a male, just from a sort of male perspective, or have you always been all right with it?
I mean, it's one of those things. It's like initially, and I feel like this is the same for a lot of individuals, male or female. I got into this with an insecurity and an element of comparison where I'm wanting to be as big as the other person or as lean and to have a particular physique, or I'm comparing my list, I'm comparing to other people, and there is that element of insecurity there, and that made the process a lot harder. And it was essentially you're at the mercy of other the comparison of other people, and that is reflecting in your own self-worth. And eventually I just realized that the comparison of other people just is not fair. You're never going to have the same genetics, the same biomechanics, the same experience, the same, if you are assisted, the same cycle, whatever that may be, the same goals as another individual. The only person that you can compare yourself is to who you were yesterday, and just to yourself in general. And that in itself, that switch in perspective gives a lot more confidence within yourself and makes the process a lot more rewarding. And essentially, off the back of that, you could be constantly winning because it's easier. It's a lot easier. It's a lot more fair there to beat who you were yesterday, even if it's by that 0.1%. And what you'll find is, as Sarah touched on, it's like, take up space. You're in the off season, still be confident, be there for it, be confident in the process that you're embarking on. It's empowering to be able to do this, that not many people are able to do it, even if they tried. If you're take pride in that, and don't be ashamed, because you're eating differently, because you are living differently. Take pride in that because you've chosen to do a process and you're sticking to it despite the opinions of other people, and that is you being true to yourself and what you want to do. And that, when you own it, in comparison to feeling ashamed and like, oh God, yeah, I'm sorry, I just need to eat this, and yeah, sorry, I mean, when you own it, other people, and you're confident in the off season. Like I've gotten to a point. It doesn't matter if I'm fat or whatever in the off season. If I actually get genuinely fat in the off season, it doesn't matter. I'll still take my top off because I know that body fat does not define my sense of self-worth, and that because I've taken it off before, I can take it off anytime I want. It's a fickle thing, body fat. Your composition's a fickle thing. You can change it anytime you want. Really, you have the power to do that, and it doesn't define your sense of self-worth. So with that in mind, it doesn't matter where your composition is, apply yourself the same. It doesn't matter if you're feeling skinny that day or if you're feeling fluffy or whatever. Just exert yourself with confidence, and off the back of that, people will respond accordingly. Again, if you are exerting yourself as this unconfident individual who's insecure within themselves with low self-esteem, people you're essentially manifesting that, and you're going to get that back. So whatever you're putting out is whatever you're going to get back. And if you come across as this confident person, you're confident in your endeavors, and it's like, why are you eating that? Why don't you just do? So I'm going to eat this. It's time for me to eat. This is what I'm going to do. It's having that mindset of, because people can get offended at you just eating your own meals. And it's understanding that what you eat doesn't make other people shit. So why does what you're putting in your mouth offend other people? I mean, it could be a number of reasons. It could be that insecure, that they can't do that themselves, or they're just applying some sense of ignorance, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant to what you're doing, as long as you're not putting that on other people. You're not letting it affect other people. It's a process that you've embarked on. Be confident within that. As long as it's not affecting other people negatively, and you're not letting that bleed into other people, then other people's opinion completely irrelevant. It doesn't matter. It shouldn't. It's like if someone's like, you're on prep, and someone's like, oh, you're looking a bit ill, whatever.
That means you're on track.
That's a compliment.
Yeah, it's like, I don't care. I don't care. I didn't ask. Didn't ask. Or it's like, oh, you're looking a bit fluffy, or whatever. These are things that I have had when I've pushed up. It's like, oh, do you not think you? No, I don't.
Are you not bodybuilding anymore? You've stopped doing it. That's what you get, don't you?
I remember finishing a prep, and after being told that I'm looking ill and this, I'm working in a gym, right? Or you're looking skinny, or your muscle. I'm then being told I'm signing people in, right? And each person that I'm signing in whilst I'm working in the gym, it's like, oh, your face, whoa. It's next person, oh, your face. And I'm like, your face. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, you could, like,
You can't do anything right at some time.
yeah, exactly. And this is the thing with bodybuilding. What you're susceptible to experience is people just comment on your body more so if you're confident. And in comparison to if you were to do that to someone who wasn't, that would be completely outrageous. But as a bodybuilder, people feel more confident to be able to go, yeah, you're not bodybuilding anymore. When you getting back to it, or when I just make these little negs. But again, as long as you have confidence within yourself, you're bulletproof to these comments. And that's where it comes from. You are comparing yourself to yourself. You are being confident within this process, and it does not matter anyone's opinion on it, unless you're letting it affect that person. It's irrelevant.
I think as well, practicing it a bit, because by no means is this going to happen overnight. I mean, some of you on the call might already be there. We're all going to be at different points, and it's taken me so long to get to this point in an off season. And I feel like at the start I'd like practice walking around the gym, like I feel quite muscular. This is really, and for me, guys, like completely honest, this is an out of body experience. I've actually got delts. Like I'm like, I know I've had delts, but like I'm so fascinated by wow, this off season is bringing me so much, but it's not arrogance.
It's presence.
It's presence. It's enjoying the training. It's training hard, and and that's what I mean by practicing it. It's like when I did it a few times, I think, oh, and I used to train in oversized tees all the time. And the destination is boy, they have the heating on. So I'm forced to wear a sports bra. I will not wear hot pants. I can't do it, guys. I do, and I used to think like there's no way, absolutely no, I would rather die of heat exhaustion than wear a sports bra in the gym at this point in off season, at this body weight and everything else. And now I'm like, bloody hell, I'm working so hard. This is 12 years for these things. And you sort of, it's almost like you can call yourself out on your own bullshit and you can have a bit of banter with it and you can think, do you know what, guys? Like, and being honest, life is short. Like it really is. And
it's not that deep. It's not that deep.
And bodybuilding, it really does bring so much. And I really like what you said on our pod about it can be such a damaging experience for a multitude of reasons. But we do have the option to be able to bring ourselves out of it through that honesty that we've spoken about. And also realizing, as you say, not that deep. What we're doing, guys, it's just cool. Like, yes, there's extremities to it. It's fucking hard at times. But I'd imagine you're doing that for a reason, right? You're probably not going to put yourself through a prep because it's some fun. Maybe it's fun in a sadistic way, and it does get like that. But it's like you're not risking your health. Let's put it straight, right? Multiple seasons, etc. Doing all these things, potentially risking relationships, maybe work, like things like this for a prep just to have a laugh, like it means something to you. So why is it then we flip into off season that we're suddenly forced into this like, oh God. And it's not, that's where I say it's not overnight. But I think like you're saying, it's owning it, isn't it? And just those little steps to go, can I give this a little go and feel better?
It is, yeah. I mean, it's like again, it's just having banter with it. I could be. I remember when I've gone quite far in an off season, but I've been there and I've taken my before photo, knowing it's a before photo, holding my chub, and I'm knowing I'm going to get it off, and I'm knowing it, and I'm like flapping it around because I'm like, is this going to come off? It's fine. And it did because I know that I'm going to dedicate myself to that process and, say, right, I'm going to get to that other end. And from that, you realize that when it's about having that, again, it's all a balancing act. It's about having that level of detachment from your physique where you're not so anal by taking it day by day, looking at yourself at the mirror, constantly checking yourself and going, I think I look a little bit softer. And you're making yourself paranoid about changes that might not even be existing. And I look shit today. Maybe you just look exactly the same, but you just woke up in a bad mood, and you've placeboed yourself into thinking that you look shit. And again, the mind's a very powerful thing. You can genuinely believe something if you tell it in yourself enough times. So again, if
tell yourself you're a boss bitch.
Yeah,
or a boss.
Every morning I wake up and go, you boss ass bitch.
I think that's the hard thing as well, because I see people like that. I've finished the same show that someone has in November. They like to stay lean. For me, I like to be. I hate my face in prep. I don't like looking at my face in prep. I don't like me. I like my muscles and the definition, but I don't like looking at it. I don't like putting clothes on. I feel horrible when I go anywhere in clothes. But I like to be like 4 weeks and I'm like, oh my God, I've got my period back in 4 weeks post show. Like for me, I think, God, I'm healthy again. I feel good. 4 weeks later, I've got my next one back. I'm thinking, bloody hell. But there's the people that don't want to put the weight back on, and that must be a struggle for them. Do you know? So even though we're all doing the same thing, we all have totally different mindsets on how we feel. People don't like getting chubby. I go Miss Trunchbull. I'm not going Trunchbull this time. I'm not going Trunchbull this year, just simply because I have got the mindset now, and I've said in recent posts that I've posted that I feel like a different person, and that's one with winning my pro card. I never believed that I could do that, and then I actually won it. But for two, I've 8 weeks post show, I'm recognizing that my ADHD medication that I got prescribed during prep is having a massive positive effect on my mind, and I'm actually feeling like I'm thinking like a normal person, which I've never felt like a normal person. And I'm 46 this year, and I actually can, my brain's calmer, I'm getting more organized, I'm thinking lots better, and that's such a nice feeling for me after being out of control forever. And finding bodybuilding has been the control for me, do you know, like a nice control. And but then now to find that at this stage is amazing. And like, I think, do you know, like it's a positive for me to actually be having this mindset post show rather than the eat everything in sight. Do you know what I mean? Binging, all of that kind of thing. That's always been a negative for me post show.
I think these conversations are helping though, like with the podcast and everything that you're doing, Sarah. Like it is creating waves across the industry, and people are connecting through understanding that while prep is glamorous, off season can be difficult, and women are becoming more confident in sharing things that are going on during off season. Because if you don't have these conversations in the industry in general, everybody stays behind closed doors and just pretends that, oh yeah, everything's fine, ticking it all, where it can be a struggle. So actually having this open communication is probably making waves across the industry to make it easier and more acceptable that you're not on your own when you feel like this. Everyone feels like this.
Yeah, that's the thing. And that's why it's good to share. I always think, say how you feel, and that should be to your coach, even though you maybe don't feel like you can't say things. Like, I had a binge post show, and I spoke to my partner and told him, which then made me feel better because I've secretly binged in the past. And then I told my coach as well. And then she was like, right, so what we'll do now is you've ate a piece of carrot cake, a piece of this, a piece of that, a piece of that. So that's in my head, that's about this many calories. So tomorrow you just can't have your oats, you can't have this, we'll strip it back. You think of it on the week, and at the end of the week, if you've gained all that back, you're fine. In my brain, because I've said this to you, Sarah, before, I'm a bodybuilder that does as I'm told. I haven't got a clue what I'm doing. I don't know the process. I can't get my head around the process. I just like being told what to do, you know? So when I didn't know what to do, that made me worse in binging. So just having that little explanation off my coach actually has made me stop binging now, because I've now got an answer to that. But like, you know, by not asking or not telling your coach or speaking to someone else, you're just getting yourself in a situation what you don't want to be in, and you don't know, do you know what the best thing to do is?
Yeah, and it is like you say.
And that's the beauty about having a coach.
Yeah.
That is the beauty about having a coach and being able to chat to them about stuff like that. I remember after my first competition, I had a coach, and I only had the one competition that year because it was my first year and I didn't really know what to expect. But obviously after the highlight of stepping on stage, there was nothing. And I just fell flat. You know, I was just like so flat. And I messaged my coach and I was like, right, okay, what am I doing with my meal plan and what am I going to do now? And he just went, oh, I just go back to what you were eating. And I was like, what, 1,000 calories a day? And he was like, yeah, we'll reverse you out slowly. And I was just like, okay. And I was like, Keza, I was just like, right, that's it. And I just kind of had a bit of a binge. And I mean, I didn't take it to extreme, but I was worse than what I should have been. You know, I was just like, oh, I'll have that cake and I'll have that cake because I've not had anything for, you know, I think my first prep lasted about 14 months because I didn't actually know when I was going to compete.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a long time. And yeah, it was just horrendous. But anyway, and I kind of went off the rails because I didn't really have anybody to properly help me. So I kind of just left and fumbled through myself. for a few months, and then I went to a different coach and got things on the straight and narrow again. But I totally understand what Kez saying with that, because if you don't have anybody that you can chat to about, that you just kind of spiral out of control slightly, and then it plays with your head because you're just like, oh my God, I've just undone all that work that I have done for the last X amount of months. And now I'm just looking like a kind of flat, fat potato. And it's just like, oh. But yeah, it's so good to be able to have a coach that you can talk to, and then they go, right, okay, that's done, that's okay. This is what we're now going to help you with, and we'll do X, Y, and Z to sort it out. And then you're just like, wow, okay, that's great. So yeah, I totally understand.
Yeah, I feel like as well, it's like what you were saying, Carly, and thank you for your kind words as always, my G. With when you hear, and this is what I think, if you hear certain things on a podcast, it might help you actually communicate with your coach more. So it's like, I thought of telling my coach that maybe I could, or I know that, there's people on this call and lots of people across the world that I've spoke to that have listened and thought, this coach is not the coach for me. I'm going to move on to another coach. And it gives you the confidence to do that. And that's not me trying to do anything sordid or whatever. What it is outlining facts and outlining we are humans as well. We have feelings, we have thoughts. And hopefully you guys, and I know you are very complimentary of having a voice, because that for sure is a mission of mine. But this type of, a webinar and bringing someone like Jack in and doing these things to expand, this is all for you guys and to help each other. And I know you're connecting as well. And like you say, Carly, it makes you realize we're all going through this stuff.
Yeah.
Actually, it does help because, as we said at the start, this is the loudest voice. The external pressure side of things, it's so pressurizing at times, but it's in here that counts, and not many people are going to see that. And that's for us, that's for us to hopefully, even conversations like this, you go away and you think, it's like you can hear one sentence. We say this, don't we, when we listen to podcasts? You hear one sentence and you think, that's changed my life.
I know, 100%. Yeah,
And
definitely.
oh my God, they're
Yeah.
talking to me. And it's, that ripple effect, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's nothing that nicer than that feeling of resonating with someone. And after the first call, when Carly contacted me and was like, thank you so much for talking about that. Like, and I connected with others off the call on this last time. And that there just made me feel so good that someone, just one person, had felt better by hearing something that I said. And I feel better by hearing, and it kind of like just, this is the whole thing, that this is needed in this industry as well, that like it needs to be a regular place where we can talk, where we can listen, where we can connect with people in the same mindset, because normal people haven't got the same mindset as us. Do you know what I mean? Like my mum said before, oh, I need you to do me a diet plan. I said, right, well, you can't have a treat for 3 weeks. I said, 3 weeks, because you need to get that mindset of no, 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 for at least, oh, I can't do that. I said, forget it then. Just you're uncoachable. Just you carry on doing what you're doing last. I was like, you're uncoachable. I can't be bothered with this. I can't. So yeah, so she just can't stick. People have got the mindset of they can't eat the same food. They can't think. And you've got to be in this place to be able to understand each other, haven't you?
Sure, for sure. I remember, Kimmy, you were saying the other day about someone said oats aren't normal, and you're like, they are. How are
Every meal is oats would do me.
Yeah, but it's like don't people eat that as like
Porridge.
when they're normal people? Yeah.
Porridge.
But there's always like these things, and you think, I just never would say to someone, do you have to eat that? Like it just wouldn't.
Yeah, I know.
It's a funny thing,
very
isn't it?
The best one is, I get really bored of eating that every single day. And it's like, well, there's kids who don't have a choice. There's kids who are opening their doors and there's bombs going off and they live in war-torn countries, and you're complaining that you might have to eat chicken and rice 4 or 5 times a day. Honestly, get a grip. Like
Exactly. My dog eats
you,
the same
you've got
kibble
to
every
like.
day.
I eat the same thing every day and like it. I just change my seasoning up. I might change the mayo to sweet chili, or like there's ways change your salad sauces, change your vegetables. But yeah, it's a privilege to be able to eat the same thing, or to even be able to have a meal on your plate. So that's how I get over the whole like, oh, am I bored of the food? No, I'm not, because it's there in the fridge, and I live, there's a lot that I've got to be grateful for, and there's other people that haven't. And that's how I kind of think when I'm having those days of like, oh, do I really want to do this? Yeah, I do. Because I might not have a choice one day. So suck it up,
Exactly.
princess. That's what I say to myself quite often when I'm having one of those moments of just like, oh, suck it up. Someone else might not be able to do this. You can. And then that last 5-10 minutes on the Stairmaster, or getting the last couple of mouthfuls of chicken in, is fine.
I've started talking to food at Christmas. I went and somebody, because I went into someone's house and they had a massive bowl of Lindt daughters, like all the different flavours. And I walked in and I went, fuck off, I'm not eating any of you. And I like literally pointed at them and was like, and I didn't have one. And I thought, oh my God, like I'm actually talking to food right now. But it did actually help, like to say, I'm not having any, you stop looking, do you know? And I've got another customer. She has a whole bowl every week of like celebrations in the middle of her island. And I go in and like, because I'm a cleaner for her, I go right in and I put them in the fridge. And like every week she said, her husband's like, why are these chocolates in the fridge? I was like, because I'm not looking at them. So I put them in there and then forget to take them out. But do
I
you know,
love
like it's like you've got to eliminate the things, haven't you?
Yeah.
Of what
fun with it.
triggers.
Oh, like being like, fuck off, you, I ain't eating you. Like,
Mm.
just sometimes being a little bit lighter with yourself, with the
Mm.
scenarios that have, and I don't say this lightly. I talk about this on the pod with Sonia, where we talk about disordered eating and food disorders. And I actually mentioned just that, I'm at a point where I can almost take the piss out of myself, not to be detrimental, not to take it lightly that I've been in, difficult territory for so many years. But I just sort of think I'm just going to have a bit of fun with it, like, and take a bit of banter into it. And like you say there, Keza, like things like that. It's so wild that we do that, but that suits our personalities as well.
Yeah,
We are wild people. We met in the tanning booth. I told you about
I
that.
know. Yeah, the tanning
It
booth.
was like, I
Mm.
listened to your podcast. But
Yeah.
it's the weird and wonderful things that we do. It's like sometimes you can get to a point of healing where you can be a bit, a bit more banter with yourself. But that does take time, of course.
Yeah.
It
You've
does.
just got to learn from your own things, like, and that's why going back to having a good coach, like my coach says, like, right, you're gonna eat your kids' chocolates, get them a blockable box and say keep it in your room. So my kids actually do hide their chocolates at Christmas, but like this Christmas, I made a massive. This is me always now going back to the old Keza. People buy me boxes of chocolate, boxes of biscuits, all of this kind of thing. So this year I thought, right, and my kids were going, you're going to open them celebrations, Mum. I said, I'm not. I own a holiday cottage as well, and I had someone coming in on Christmas Eve. So I re-gifted my chocolate and my biscuits and my after eight and put them in a box in my cottage for the family that were coming in to eat. And I didn't feel guilty about it because I thought somebody's gifted those to me. I don't want to eat them. My kids are then going to eat all of the Galaxy and all that and leave the bloody bounties and stuff. And then, even though I don't really like them, I'm still going to bloody eat them instead of throwing them in the bin because it's a waste. So I said, no, you're not having them. You'll get your own chocolates for Christmas. But that was something else that I did that I wouldn't normally do. And I thought, you've got to think out of the box in reasons on what, like, different things, what you can do to actually change your thought process. Like Christmas Day, everybody's like, right, I'm going to eat what I want. That's good for people who want to eat what they want. And this year I thought, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have oats. I've not had a mince pie this year. I'm going to buy mince pie filling. And for my breakfast on Christmas Day, I'm going to have 20 grams of mince pie in my oats. I'm going to have my yogurt and I'm going to have my berries, but I'm going to have one meringue on top of it. I'm going to have a pudding and I'm going to have Snacker Jacks and I'm going to put banana and caramel thing on it and a bit of chocolate. And that's what we did this year. And it was, I didn't buy any of the crap, but I just upped the normal day food to taste a bit different and have different options. And do you know what? It felt good. It did actually feel good to not be deviating off plan, not to feel like, oh my God. And that isn't as a disorder. Do you know what I mean? That was just me trying to actually think, well, you can have alternatives. It doesn't always have to be the bad stuff. You can have good stuff with a tiny wee bit of the bad stuff, and it does make you feel better.
Yeah.
It's your own personal balance, and
Yeah,
comes from yourself. And quite often around the Christmas periods, it's like there's this picture of what Christmas should be, and everyone is trying to chase and follow it. And then I don't know, it's like you're made to feel bad if you don't have this tradition of Christmas where you overindulge, or you're made to feel like an alien. But like you could do whatever you want. Any
yeah,
even on Christmas, and that could be following your plan to the T. That could be having a little bit of balance, or if you're okay with it, you can have a little bit of food off. And this is what you were saying, Keza, is just what we were touching on in the beginning. Is you were able to do that, but how you felt about doing it is completely different.
yeah,
You're not fighting yourself whilst doing it. It's like, this is what I want to do, and I'm fine with it, and that's okay. And,
yeah,
as simple as that may be, and how that may look on the outside, they can't see that invisible win, that absolute win that
yeah.
you've had.
That was a win. It felt like a win, and like
It
do you
was.
know what I mean? That's like the good part of it. It's not the excuses that I always make, or do you know what I mean? So for me, that's even those things. I don't compare myself to others. I just look at where I used to be like, and the little differences I make each off season to the next one to the next. Do you know? And that's how I look at myself. I just want to improve each year, and I'm never going to be perfect. I don't want to be absolutely bang on perfect, but I want to be better than I was, and that's my why.
I love that. She says the right things, doesn't she? If you summarized what bodybuilding ideally would bring to an individual, it's exactly that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Personal progression, both mindset and physique.
Exactly. You don't want to trade off where it's like, okay, I've progresses in my physique, but I've got a ton of disorders along with it. If you can find a place where you're at whole with your body and your mind, and you're sound with that, then that is the win. That is the win. A lot of people will celebrate a place on stage, and off the back of that, you can have a placing and you feel horrible afterwards, and go through a really poor time post show, and but people are celebrating that win. And you could also have another win and have a really, really positive experience post show in comparison. And people won't necessarily celebrate that post show window, or the wins, those invisible wins, but they're still worth recognizing and be proud of in the way that you would be proud of a placing at a show, because at the end of the day, that is still a win. It's just that mental wins aren't celebrated or held in the same regard as something that is visible. But that's a personal thing to you, and so is this process. This process should be a personal thing to yourself, and that's again, as someone else touched on, when you're doing it for yourself, you're going to get far more out of this. You're going to be able to be more consistent with it, and you're going to be able to be more progressive with it, and it's going to be a lot more rewarding at the end of the day.
And the longevity, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
the longevity as a bodybuilder, and also, every skill we're learning when we step away from competing, we can transfer that into still bodybuilding for enjoyment as well, and taking that competitive element out. But if this is your thing, if bodybuilding is your passion, and you're going to do it for the rest of your life, all of the things we've spoken about today, if there's anything that we've been talking about or someone's mentioned, and it's like, God, that made me feel a certain way, or maybe there was a bit of a trigger there, or maybe it was like, actually, I've come that far. Anything you've picked up on, noticing how that makes you feel from an emotional standpoint, is either a celebration of growth already is something you can work on, is something that you can learn more about, is something you can speak to your coach about, is something that you can explore more. And there's so many, when you talk about mindset, and that's why I said right at the start, it's a journey. There's so many things that are, open for you to expand on and continue that mindset journey. And that even comes down to, talks like this, or if you're listening to one of my episodes and you think, oh, that's made me feel a certain way. Why is that? What is there something there? Like, is this something that I could work on? And almost, what we said about the external pressure of food, etc. Not taking things too personally, but going, hold on a minute, why did that make me feel a certain way? How can I change that? And that, again, it goes back to what we've spoken about the whole time, the honesty with yourself, and actually being able to go, this is something I want to work on, like I work on my physique. I'd like to work on this as well. And I think that's important. So guys, does anyone have any questions or anything they'd like to say before we go? I can't believe it's the end.
I think
I
that
have
going
a
back to the
question.
very beginning with the journaling, like, can it just be simply like even words on how you're feeling that day? Because, like, do you know, so just even like, even starting off with having your diary or on your phone, and you can say, I've had a good day, I've had a bad day. Then at least you can even just look back on the month and think, well, oh, I had a few bad days before my period, so this is I had. So it's kind of just kind of keeping track on lots of different things, isn't it? On maybe even over your month, over the year, over your prep, over
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many
yeah.
to do this. And again, it's the way that suits you best, and it could be to different extents as well. It could be some days you could go in introspectively and go, this is how I feel, and go off many tangents. Some days it's like,
SVB.
yeah, some days it could be, today's been good. I'm happy.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
it.
Or today's
yeah.
been hard. And maybe even like just thinking out loud, you could put like the day in the thought bubble and then put some, this was hard or this was good, or
Yeah.
like thought bubbles, or be creative. Like I love coloring and like making it all this,
Yeah.
and you look at it and think, what the fuck is that? But
And then you go down a rabbit hole and go, yeah, this annoyed me today, and and you're talking, and you are essentially talking to yourself. I mean, you could actually talk to yourself, and that could still be journaling. You could literally have a conversation with yourself and go, this made me feel this way. And then you're exploring that concept of why that's made you feel that way and why you've had a bad day. And then you get a better understanding because you've just spent that time being introspective and being present with your thoughts and actually being able to filter it in a way where you can then understand and then prompt more self-awareness. And again, there's so many ways to journal. It's just, it doesn't have to be the conventional way, doing it.
Yeah.
I think as well, you could like summarize it as well, like because a lot of people say if something doesn't go right, one thing, it's like, oh my god, the whole day is just totally fucked up.
Yeah.
And then, but if you summarize it in a day or even by the end of the week, you thought at the beginning of the week it was all just a bag of shit, and then by the end of the week you think actually it's been really fucking good. I've done this, done this, done this. Do you know what I mean? So maybe like summarize it as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think it is something because I have my friend does tapping, the tapping, and what a lot of people do, where you're like, I don't know how it works, but she's just started doing that. And I was discussing it with my ADHD coach because I have an ADHD coach. And I thought, I really want to make 2025 the year because I feel like sometimes like I can't bring myself to the present moment, that I struggle with that because my mind's so here, there, and everywhere. Like I go to bed and like sometimes I have to like maybe just in my brain work through things before I can get to sleep. Do you know what I mean? Like I've got to pay the dinner money for tomorrow. I've got to do all these things. So that's a bit like journal, isn't it? Getting it out
Write a
of your
list.
head at bedtime.
Yeah, you could just write everything that's going down in your head down on paper before you go to sleep.
Yeah.
Get it out. And then also you can sometimes
I find really interesting listening to you, Kez, earlier is there's a very big similarity between ADHD and being perimenopausal, your brain, because I'm perimenopausal and I coach midlife women. And there's such a similarity between what's going on in our brains at this time that it's just really interesting listening to you, because I'm just like, wow, I don't have ADHD, but listening to Kez, I'm like, maybe I do have. But then again, it's just, for me, it's perimenopause, right? It definitely is. But there's such a similarity there. It'd be really good to have a wee
Oh
discussion
yeah,
with you
well, we're
about it.
friends anyways because we did a show together, didn't we, in Two Bros last year? So we can connect. It'll be nice to connect, and I always like anybody to ask if how I got diagnosed, how things like that. So if I have had a lot of people ask that question. So if you do want to get in touch
Yeah.
and just ask a couple of things, then that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, we'll have a wee chat. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is another thing what it's all about, just connecting and like
Yeah.
we're all getting something out of this call, aren't we?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
it's just so nice to, be able to speak with you all, because you all, I wouldn't be where I am with the podcast if you guys didn't listen, and that's important. This for me brings a lot of fulfillment in speaking with you guys and seeing your faces. And also we joked on the first one, we're all real people, which is
Yeah.
the social media. And anyone that's come into the seminar in February, of course, you'll realize I'm exactly the same when you meet me there. And that in itself, for you guys connecting also, it can be quite hard on social media if you don't live somewhere where bodybuilders are and things like that, to actually connect and invest in someone, because in the back of your mind, it's like, is this a real person? Is this a thing? And I want that for you guys as well, and for you to feel that you can approach me. So thank you for joining as well, because it's your time and we're in this together,
Yeah. Oh, it's been brilliant. I love it. I just can't wait for the next one now. So get the date set.
And thank you to Jack.
Sign me up now.
No pressure. No pressure there.
But yeah, no, thanks very much for coming on
Yeah,
and just,
thank
like
Yeah, thank
having
you.
a chat, and that it's nice as well I live in a house full of men. So it's nice to be on with the women. So you now know what it's like to live in the women's world.
Absolutely. It's been an absolute pleasure. To be fair, I grew up in a house of women, so it's not unfamiliar territory as such. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, and it's very true. It's always great to connect. It's always great to network. It's always it always reiterates the point that we're all very similar minded. And who would have thought? Because we're all doing the same sport, we're all doing a very similar process. We're all going to have very similar sort of crooks and crannies along the way. So to affirm that with each other, and it makes us have that sense of normality within ourselves. And go, yeah, no, this is validated that we feel this way, and it's okay. And there is a light at the end of the tunnel if you are going through something. And I think, calls like this absolutely do help. It's a pleasure to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Let's have our photo, guys. Group.
I can't see without my glasses on, but I took them off.
Oh no, God. Okay. Ready?
Right, are we doing that, are we?
Yeah, that's cool. Oh, wait. Cat's back. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Hey, family. Chosen family. Well, I will get the date for the next one organised, but big
Brilliant.
love, my people.
Brilliant.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you.
Happy
Thank you so
New Year,
much.
everyone. Let's
Take
make
care.
it a good one.
Bye.